Hey everyone, welcome back to our Asli Analytics channel. Today I have with me Isha and she'll be giving a mock interview. This interview is designed currently for, let's say, a screening round for Tridents, Mu Sigma, Maths Company, or even product companies, right? And the process is simple. We'll give her a couple of questions to write SQL queries. That could be 3 or 4 queries depending on the time. And then we'll take her to one guess estimate question. So let's see how she performs. Hey Isha, excited for the interview?
Yeah, definitely, Gaurav.
So look, we'll quickly start. I'll probably share you my doc and we can start with the
Sure,
question answer round.
sure.
Is it visible to you, the screen?
Uh, no, Gaurav, not yet.
Not.
Yes, now visible. Yeah,
Okay, so I've given you the access, Isha. What you can do is
sure.
you can log into this Word doc and this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you are given two tables, table A and table B.
Okay.
What I want you to do is I have written a query. So it's a simple inner join query. So
Mm-hmm.
table B, we've named it as area
Correct.
B, and I want you to write the
Mm-hmm.
output besides present your solution below, right? So you can write the output below. You already have
Okay,
inter access to this doc.
sure. Okay, Gaurav. Let me just open it quickly
Yeah.
and
Just
we'll
open it
do
on
that.
your laptop and yeah, I think you've got it. You can start.
Yes. Okay. So we are having two tables and we need to perform the inner join out of it. Okay. Since we are doing the inner join, so definitely from both the tables, we are going to get the matched records accordingly.
Mhm.
So let me write the output. So first, one in the table A will going to join one both in the table B. So it will be like this. Now moving ahead, since one is not matched with the two, so query will not going to give the output accordingly. Moving ahead with the two, two is having two again in table B, so two and two will be there. Three is not there in table B, so yeah, this is the output according.
Perfect. I think this was pretty nice. I think let's quickly jump on to the next question. So the same question,
Sure.
right? Just that
Mm-hmm.
output that we want is now a left join.
Okay. Okay. So can I remove this particular output and I can I do the left join accordingly?
And simply
Or
copy.
should I?
But just see that
Okay.
the input table has slightly changed. The table B of
Correct.
slightly changed, right? So you can just
Correct. Yes.
copy from the previous anything that was.
Okay. Got it. So this is something which will going to remain the same because in left join, what used to is happen is that we will going to get all the data from a particular table that is table A and only the matched records from table B.
Perfect.
So since this is something which will going to remain the same, now we are only left with free. So since we want free from table A and free is not being there in table B, so ultimately we will going to get output of none. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Can you just copy this and type it here in question two? Present your below, answer below in question two. Can you just copy that and type it here?
Sure. Oh, okay. It is being there. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Now just if you see what I have done is there is a slight change in table B as compared to the previous question. So table B's order is not exactly the same. Maybe you can just look into that. So,
Okay, got it. Correct. Let me solve it again. Or let me solve it here itself, just for the simplicity. So one will going to join again with one. One is again there with one, so it will be one itself. Two, yes, two will be there. Since three is not there, so yeah, it will be null again. So I hope the answer is correct, Gaurav.
yeah, this is correct. Okay, this is correct. Just
Okay,
nothing. If you see the previous one versus this one, exactly, there's no change in answer. It's just to
no change.
help you understand or get that confidence that you are actually correct with your concept, which you are. Great. I think that you are doing good. Let's now quickly jump on to maybe take a different
Next question.
for you. Okay. So let's say you
Okay.
are given with an employee table. Employee department data is there. There is an employee ID. There is a department ID, and there is salary. Assume everything is integers,
Okay.
simplicity. What we want is, can you list down all the employees whose salary is greater than the average salary of the department?
Average salary of the department. So we want all the employees whose salary is average salary of the department. right?
Salary is greater than the average salary of their department, right? Assume that every employee is mapped to only one
Okay.
department.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So in this particular thing, what we need to do is that, first of all, we need to find the average salary within the department. So
Perfect.
I'm going to use the analytics function, that is Windows function,
Okay.
Windows aggregate function, and then I will going to move ahead. So let me start with the query. So it will be, we are fetching the data from the employees table.
Below the fourth question, type here where we've written question 4, where you have the snapshot data just besides that. Write your solution here. Type there.
Oh, okay, it has been there.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Select aspect from snapshot data. Now, since we want the average salary, I will going to do the average of the salary for each individual department.
Hmm.
And since we want to get it for each individual department, I need to provide partition by
Okay.
over department ID.
Mm-hmm.
And since order is not mattered here, so I'm skipping the order by part and will keep it as a name with average salary, right?
Okay.
So now let me enclose the data into CT. You might ask me why CT, because CT is quite readable enough. So that is the reason. Although we can use the subquery, but for the large data set, subquery is something which is not feasible. Hence, I kept it into CT. Now, moving ahead. So what is happening is that a new column is being created into this particular data where department-wise average salary would be there. So, and just simply we need to filter out the salaries wherever the salary is greater than the average salary. And whatever the employees details we want, we can find it. Done.
Perfect. So I think this is quite good, right? I think we can probably jump on to the last question. So
Sure.
the question is simple. You are given with two columns of data. One is ID, one is revenue. Let's say this is a sales data, and all we want is, can you give me the cumulative sum ordered by
Mm-hmm.
ID? That's the simple output that we want. So this is the input data. If you see below, this is the output table. This is what.
Got it. Sure.
So you can write your query and you can get me the data.
Okay. So there are two approaches through which we can solve this particular question. The
Hmm.
first approach I'm going to apply is by using the analytics function, that is some aggregation function.
Hmm.
So let me do it first and then we will going to move ahead.
Hmm.
So the output table, the table name is sales data, and I will apply the sum aggregation function over the revenue.
Yeah.
Here, order by matters.
Hmm.
So, order by will be according to the ID. For suppose if any date column is given, I will going to do it accordingly, but still I will do it according to the ID. And now we will going to get the cumulative sum. That's it. So this is the first approach, and I would say a very optimal approach if we are having a large and complex data set.
Hmm.
But the same thing we can achieve by using the self join as well.
Okay.
So what in self join we need to do is that simply we need to join the same table with its own. So
Hmm.
let me do it with S1 and then I will apply join over the sales data by giving name sales S2 on. So here the tricky part comes in. So now in cumulative sum, what is the thing is happening is that for each individual record, we are summing that revenue and as well as the previous revenue,
Yes.
right? So this is the reason I will going to put where uh, ID is greater than or equals to, sorry, this will be S1
Hmm. Okay.
and S2 dot ID. Now, all the joinings will be done And since we want to get the cumulative sum, we need to apply the group by over it. So group by will be S1 dot ID and S1 dot revenue. The same goes here in the select statement. And the sum of S2 dot revenue. So this will be our cumulative sum.
Perfect. I think you have the answer. I think the first one is the optimal approach. This
Yes.
was a trickier part of the question, which you already solved. So let's make one
Correct.
tricky question for you, given you are doing it really well. Let's see how you perform there. So let's say there is a table
Sure.
A. Okay, it has 3 rows, 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Right? Now from this table, what I want is write a query that I get this as an output, and the value should be something like this. You will get 1, you will get a 2, another 2, and it will keep on doing the repetition for the number of times. So 3, 3, and 3. This is what we want you to do. Write a query which will give you this data. You have just one table.
Okay. So the input table is, just to clarify, Gaurav, the input table is table A, that is 1, 2, 3 is having the values.
Yeah.
And in the output, we are looking ahead for the output which you have mentioned in table B, right?
Right. Exactly. So you have just one table as a table, which is your table A. It has ID column, it has 3 rows. What I want you to do is write a query from this input table such that you get the output table as B, which will have 6 rows as of for now with this snapshot data.
Okay. So just give me a moment. Let me think like what approach I can follow this.
What comes to your mind? This is a tricky one, right? What comes to your mind? How will you?
Yeah. So the output is in such a way that if number is 1, the repetition will be only 1.
Right.
And if number is 2, the repetition will be according to it, that is 2. And if number is 3, the repetition is 3.
Right. Perfect. That's how the question is. Now take hint, right?
Yeah.
The previous question that you solved using self-join, given it is just one table,
Correct.
either you could use some recursiveness or you could use a self-join thing. All you need to think about is what is that condition. So in the previous question, you had that condition. Think about what condition might work for you in this case. That's the hint for you.
Okay. I think we can do the self-join, but exactly on what condition that we need to apply is quite tricky here.
Sure, no worries. I think you've tried it pretty well on the SQL questions. And this was the tricky one, so it's just the add-on because of you've done it pretty well. But the answer was, I think you already had the answer. If you look back at the previous question, maybe when the interview gets over, I'll give you the real idea. But you are pretty close. Okay. Now, let's take the next set of pattern of interview, which is around guess estimate. Okay? So anywhere you will interview, you
Okay.
will have this guess estimate. And during this guess
Sure.
estimate question that I'll give you, right, I'm not really interested in the exact number. I'm interested in
Okay.
approach. How do you break this problem? How do you come close
Mm-hmm.
to any number which is a decent enough number, right? That's what I'm interested in. So take your approach.
Correct.
So what I want is, this question is simple. Estimate the number of
Yeah.
Swift cars in Delhi.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Sure. So just give me a moment, Gaurav. Let me recollect my thoughts over this. Okay, so one clarifying question which I would like to ask is that, so this is the number of cars which are currently in existence in Delhi. That is something which we are looking, right?
Right. Correct. Good enough question.
Okay. 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 So,
Just for the definition of Delhi, let's take the, so you might get confused between NCR and all of that. Simply let's stick to Delhi.
yes.
Okay, that's another clarifying thought for you.
Okay. Okay. So let me start it with it. So I'm considering that Delhi is having a population of almost 1 CR as of now. And I would like to break them in terms of families as well as the bachelors. So very first thing what I'm going to do is that I will calculate the number of cars which is currently is being there in Delhi. And accordingly, I will segregate it in terms of Maruti Swift and color wise. So I hope this is something which we can do, right?
You can. But
Okay.
before that, do you have any other question? So you have one, you had one
Uh,
enough question. Any other question that you might need to get a lot more clarity onto this question that you proceed with? Will Swift car be owned
not
by non-commercial people? It can be used for commercial purposes also, right? Taxis,
correct. Yes.
Uber, anything.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a fair question to ask before you start jumping onto the solution?
Definitely. So, yeah, it is quite important to know like whether the cars are being used in domestic side or commercial side. So, of course. So, what would be your thing? Like, should I
Let's,
need to move ahead with the domestic?
yeah, let's simply stick to the non-commercial aspect. Let's ignore the commercial aspect.
Okay.
So the question
Okay.
now becomes
Okay.
quite pinpointed. We are now trying to estimate
Correct.
the number of active red Swift cars for used in non-commercial purposes in Delhi, which is used by families as of now. Okay? That's the
Yes.
question
Yes.
for you. Now you can take your time, jot down all
Sure.
your thoughts, and we can maybe move up once you have something in your mind.
Okay. 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 So very first thing which I'm going to do right now is to segment the 1 crore Delhi's population in families as well as bachelors.
Okay.
So I'm considering that uh, let's say 80% population comes under family group, and rest 20% will be there into the bachelor side. So here bachelors mean like any generation who are staying in Delhi, like in PGs or someone like that.
Okay.
So accordingly, for families, they're having 80 lakhs people, and further, I will going to break them in terms of households. Okay. So and moving ahead with the bachelors, this 20 lakhs. Now, my assumption regarding the family is that I'm considering there are 4 members in each particular family. So I hope, Gaurav, this is something which is a valid assumption from your end as well.
As I'm saying, right, I'm not really interested in those numbers. You can take a fair enough
Okay,
assumption of 4 members per family. You can move forward with that.
okay, sure. So accordingly, 2 lakh household is being there in Delhi.
Okay.
Now, moving ahead, I'm considering that 50% of the families are having cars, though we can segment it into different levels as well, like in terms of, income level, like whether the rich families were there or let's say the rest of the bifurcation. So I'm considering out of 20 households, 20% would be the rich household,
Okay.
and rest 80%
Hmm.
would be the rest household, like we can consider upper class, middle class, and rest of the population,
Okay.
right? So when it comes to 20% of 20% household, so this would be around 4 lakh household, and this is 16 lakhs household. Now, moving ahead with the rich households, so I'm considering minimum 2 cars would be there. So here I'm just considering overall cars for right now, and then moving ahead, we can bifurcate in whether they're having the Swift or so on and so forth. So if we consider they're having 2 cars
Hmm.
in each particular household, so that comes around 8 lakhs cars. And in terms of rest of the households, I'm assuming 1 cars would be there on an average. So again, that would be 16 lakh cars.
Now, let me just pause you here for a moment, right? So when you've broken the families into rich versus rest, right? Do you think it would be a little
Mm-hmm.
bit if you could break it into rich, middle class, and let's say poor section? Because then you could probably take a little
Correct.
more seasoned estimate that look, poor people might not be owning a car. Middle class has a higher effect
Correct.
to use Maruti cars because it is relatively cheaper.
Correct.
Rich might have a
Yeah.
very percentage in terms of probability of using that Swift
Mm-hmm.
car. So maybe out of 2 cars that you've mentioned, right? When you further break it down,
Mm-hmm.
have that assumption and you can further use it into your calculation.
Got it. Got it. So do you want me to recalculate again according to
No,
the
it's just
sayings?
okay as of
Like,
now. I think I can take the rest into middle class and poor. It works. We can use that into the probability part. No worries on it.
sure, sure. So we got the total cars from this particular segment
Hmm.
from families side is like 24 lakhs cars, that is in total.
That's it.
Now moving ahead with the bachelors.
No.
So I'm
Let's hold up. Let's just hold up for bachelors, right? Let's complete everything for total cars for families.
okay,
Let's break it down into the final number for red Swift cars. Now you have total number of cars
okay,
that you've estimated. I am aligned on the number of 24 lakh. How do you break it down into Swift cars and then into further red Swift cars? How do you do that?
okay. So before I was thinking that let's calculate the complete total cars which are available in Delhi. Then I would going to segment it further, like 50% cars would be from the Maruti side. And out of 50%, I would say 20 to 20%, 25% would be in terms of Swift cars.
Okay, so
So
let
would
me
be
make
a
it
valid point enough.
relatively simpler for you. Let's assume there is nothing called as bachelors. Everything is families. 100% is families. You can ignore the bachelors
Okay,
completely. Whatever numbers you've taken
okay,
is fine enough. It's not 80%, it's 100%, and it's equivalent to 24 lakh cars. Okay? Let's move
okay,
on to
okay.
this question.
Sure, sure. Okay. So now the total number of cars exist within the Delhi is 24 lakh cars for
Hmm.
the domestic purpose. So I'm assuming that since we know that Maruti holds a good number of share and they're like into lead in terms of car industry. So I'm assuming 50% of the cars from this 24 lakh cars would be from the Maruti. So that goes to around 12 lakh cars.
Okay.
Now, in Maruti, there are different models available, that is Swift and so on and so forth. So I'm assuming that Swift is something which is very affordable for all general public. So I'm giving around 20 to 25%. So that would be somewhere around 3.7, I would say. So I'm keeping it as 3 lakh cars. Now, in terms of red cars, so red we have seen it's quite, uh, you know, uh, I would say white, silver, and black used to be generally preferred in terms of cars
Fair enough.
specifically. So I'm assuming that 50% or yeah, let's take it. 50% of the cars of this 3 lakh Swift cars would be the red ones. So around 1.5, or we can round it off for the simplicity of 1 lakh cars. So in Delhi, 1 lakh red Swift cars are currently available in terms of domestic usage. I hope this is something which is quite valid enough, right, Gaurav?
So, okay, now that we have your answer, right, I'll probably will try to give you a feedback of the entire process and
Sure,
approaches. Okay, so
sure.
let's start with your feedback part, Isha. So I think you were pretty
Okay,
with your SQL part. I think I really love the way you explained. The one thing that everyone can learn from your experience is that you were thinking out loud. So when you are writing the things, you are ensuring that you speak it out and you help ensure that this is how you can break the problem. With the self-join question
correct.
or the cumulative sum question that you solved, right? You knew that there were two approaches. It can sometimes feel like you have already solved this question. Okay, to the end interviewer.
Yeah.
You have to be a little careful because if you over express, what will happen next is they
Okay,
will try to give you something a little harder, which happened straight
okay,
after that. Okay. So if you know, you have
correct.
to be a little careful in expressing it out very clearly. But the good thing is you explain things in a very efficient way. You have a very good communication skills,
Okay,
which is a very plus point. Okay. So that's good.
sure.
On SQL, if I have to rate you, I will rate you 5 on 5 because that tricky part, I don't expect people to really solve it out. Okay. It's just given to see how they perform under pressure, and it's not a way of actually rating people. On the problem
Sure.
solving part or on the guess estimate part, there are a couple of things which I feel you kind of missed,
Mm-hmm.
or it might not have come to your mind straight away. Okay, so that was the first question. So you asked the first question for active cars and not. This was good enough. For whether what is Delhi exactly, we clarified it. Then the question should be commercial versus non-commercial because it can be used, right? That,
Correct. Yeah,
but yes, just from the feedback perspective, it is something which I don't expect people to know because it's an instantaneous question and it might not so come directly to your mind, but it's okay. Okay. Till that point, it is perfectly fine. Now, when you're breaking the problem into smaller sections, right? The segmentation that you've done, let's say for families versus bachelors, decent enough. I would not even think about bachelors at this point of time. I'll simply think about I have 1 CR of population. How do I break this 1 CR of population into the different sections I could? Okay, so let's say there is
okay,
upper middle class, right? I have rich and I have poor. And now my assumptions becomes very easier, right? I divide my total population into this some random percentage. Let's say 20% rich,
Mm-hmm.
60% middle, 40% poor. I divide the middle into further into middle and upper middle. Okay. Now my next question is
Got it.
that, and before even starting with that, right? If I could write a formula of what I exactly want. So I want red shift cars. What is the formula of red shift cars? It is the total number of population of Delhi into the number of families that are living into something, into something, into something, right? So if I can achieve that formula that you are doing, right? If that's in a structured way, if you start with that and you then start breaking
Mm-hmm.
into more uh, linear approach, okay? That this is the assumption,
Okay,
and that makes a lot more easier for the interview to grasp and understand that look, you've understood it. Now there are certain assumptions also which becomes a relatively intuitive for you to give that answer. For example, when you mentioned that it's not that common to see a red car, which was a very fair enough assumption, but then the probability that you've taken for that red color is very high. You've taken around 50% of cars that
okay,
will be red. Okay.
okay.
In spite of saying the
Mm.
right thing, you are taking a wronger assumption here because you've already mentioned it, the higher number of cars that you see is white and black and silver. So red comes fourth. So maybe that probability is very less. Now I really don't care whether it's
Correct.
20% or 15% or 10%. But that number that you take that assumption, it can't be 50% in that case, which means red is relatively higher.
Mm.
It's almost the second car that you are seeing. That is what you are saying. Okay, so that's a small mistake that you've done. But overall, your approach was
Okay,
decent. You had the ideas of breaking this problem into small set of variables, families and families from rich into non-rich, right? Again, there also you have to be considerate that I can take a
okay.
fair assumption if I break my problems into more simpler parts. So I have rich, I
Mm.
have middle, I can further break into middle, into upper middle and lower middle. Then I have the poor section. I can completely take an assumption that poor people does not own a car. So that section of the problem I have ignored. Okay. For rich, I can
Correct.
assume that there is a very low probability of them using a Swift car because they are tend
Mm.
to have those cars which are high end luxury cars. ठीक है, so
correct.
only a
Yeah,
very lower section of rich people might own a Swift car, and then the red Swift car will be very less population, because again there is a probability that keeps on coming in. Okay, so
yeah,
that's how we can proceed. I'll probably create one video on this question. Maybe you can go through that, and
sure,
a lot of other people might understand how you can do it. But I think your approach was decent enough. Overall, I would love to take you for the next round, because I think you have it in you. You know how to answer, you know how to approach, and I think you've done it really well. So congratulations. I think
sure,
that's a great learning for everyone, the way you've answered. And one thing that stands out for your case is your communication, your way of explaining
sure.
things in a very clear fashion. And just from the hiring perspective, right? When people hire, they really want candidates who have this quality, because you will be speaking to the end stakeholder. Okay? So even though
Exactly. Yeah.
apply for, let's say, 1.5 years of experience, but that quality will specially take you out amongst all the rest of the candidates. So if you are just watching it, I think you should really praise her for her efforts on this case. Thanks a lot, Isha. Thank you for your time,
Thank you so much.
and it was lovely taking your mini mock interview. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you so much, girl. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. ठीक है ईशा, आई थिंक दिस वाज लवली. आई थिंक यू डन इट रियली वेल. काफी बढ़िया था. तो मुझे तो मैंने जो फीडबैक दिया, इट्स
Not
फीडबैक फॉर यू.
exactly. I mean, I think मैं शायद और ज्यादा बेटर कर सकती थी because I
इट्स अ
mean
प्रेशर.
ये जो क्वेश्चन थे, yeah,
हम्म.
sure. मतलब being an aspiring Gaurav, I think जो basic questions है तो वो can that we can solve, but जब tricky part आता है तो वहीं पे एक दिमाग घूम जाता है कि अब
दिस
क्या
इज
करना है.
दिस इज द आइडिया, राइट? दिस इज द आइडिया दैट आई वांट यू टू अंडरस्टैंड फ्रॉम द हायरिंग पर्सपेक्टिव. मुझे पता है
हम्म.
कि जैसे ही ट्रिकी क्वेश्चन आएगा, ईशा को उस इंस्टेंट पे नहीं बनेगा. एंड आई नो इट कि वो नहीं बनेगा, और मैं एक्सपेक्ट भी नहीं कर रहा हूँ कि वो बने. So the game is not
Okay.
to know that hard question. The game is to
Okay.
solve those three questions which were easy and kind of middle level in a very efficient way, which you did. ठीक है? तो गेम हार्ड क्वेश्चन करने का है ही नहीं, क्योंकि अगर मैं हार्ड क्वेश्चन किसी को भी दूंगा, गौरव को भी मिलेगा, देयर इज क्वाइट अ डिसेंट चांस कि वो ऑन दैट सेकेंड इट माइट जस्ट नॉट कम टू एंड. ये बहुत
हम्म.
इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है. तो जब आप प्रिपेयर कर रहे हो, यू हैव टू इंश्योर द टाइम. ठीक है? दूसरे लोगों के मॉक इंटरव्यू देखोगे तो तुम्हें समझ में आएगा कि उनका टाइम कितना ज्यादा लग रहा है, बिकॉज दे आर नॉट प्रिपेयर्ड. So it's a game of timing. It's
Okay.
not a game of knowing everything. You don't need to know everything. मुझे इससे समझ में आ रहा है कि ईशा को जब रियल वर्ल्ड में प्रॉब्लम्स मिलेंगी, शी इज क्विक इनफ टू सॉल्व दैट. वो कर लेगी गूगल, वो कर लेगी सर्च. अब अभी थोड़ी जरूरी है कि वो अभी सॉल्व करके दिखाए. ठीक है? ऑब्वियसली इन द नेक्स्ट राउंड मे बी द क्वेश्चन बिकम्स काइंड ऑफ रियल केस ड्रिवन. तो मैं स्विगी का डेटा सेट दूंगा, वो थोड़ा हार्ड हो जाएगा, वो
Okay.
सेंसेस में नहीं आएगा. तो उसको सॉल्व करने का क्या तरीका है? दैट यू प्रैक्टिस द राइट सेट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस.
हम्म.
डोंट रियली वरी अबाउट लेवल 3 आईटी जेई. हमें लेवल 3 आईटी जेई नहीं करना है. हमें रिलेवेंट क्वेश्चंस को कॉन्सेप्चुअली ज्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग करना है, ताकि रिपीटेटिवनेस बढ़े और टाइमिंग कम हो. क्योंकि टाइमिंग अगर ज्यादा जाएगा तो मैं नेक्स्ट बोलूंगा चलो इसको स्किप करते हैं, आगे बढ़ जाते हैं. ठीक है? दिस इज
Okay.
व्हाट हैपन, दिस इज वेयर रिजेक्शंस हैपन, कि भाई टाइम ही नहीं मिल पा रहा है, बनता है, सोच ही नहीं पा रहे हैं, क्लिक ही नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. ठीक है?
हम्म.
प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग,
Correct.
I
Correct.
feel there is a scope of improvement. So you are
Sure.
jumping onto the solution one. You shouldn't do that. You should
Okay.
clarify. Again, जैसे मैंने बोला, हर क्वेश्चन क्लैरिफाई के लिए दिमाग में नहीं आएगा. और तुम्हें ये भी समझना है कि
हम्म.
इंटरव्यूअर जानता है ये बात कि नहीं आएगा. बट जो तुम अजम्पशंस भी ले रही हो, तो वो अजम्पशन भी फेयर इनफ होने चाहिए.
Okay.
ठीक है? तो वो जो 50% वाला अजम्पशन है, दैट्स अ वेरी रॉन्ग अजम्पशन. इट काइंड ऑफ
ठीक
गिव्स
है.
एन अजम्पशन
हम्म.
कि बोल कुछ रही हो, कर कुछ रही हो, मिस हो रहा है.
Okay.
ठीक है?
ठीक.
बट
हम्म.
बट दीज आर वेरी स्मॉल थिंग्स. ये इंटरव्यू में हो सकता है.